10. German Chainsaw Massacre. In a small German town, an 18-year-old kid almost had his hand chopped off during a prank involving a chainsaw. The victim of this horrible prank was celebrating Christmas holiday with friends in the small town of Vickede. The teen had fallen asleep on the sofa very early in the morning, and one of his friends decided to play a joke on him. He brought a chainsaw inside the house, thinking it would be hilarious if he woke his friend up by switching on the chainsaw and waving it around in his face. Naturally, the prank did not work as planned. When the prankster turned on the chainsaw, the victim jerked upright, wide awake, and then leaped into the air, acting on instinct. He tried to push the chainsaw away from him, since he was still dazed and didn't understand what was happening. The chainsaw ripped into his flesh and almost cut his arm off. The poor guy had to be rushed to the hospital, while the other friends who were present had to be treated for shock. They were left stunned by all the blood that was flung around by the spinning chainsaw. According to a spokesman with the police, the prankster claimed he thought the chain brake was active, which would have prevented the chain from spinning. But of course, that wasn't the case. Luckily for the victim, he survived with only minor injuries. 9. April Fool's Day. An April Fool's Day prank gone wrong recently landed 58-year-old Arnthea Willis behind bars. The bizarre prank unfolded in Wichita, Kansas, when Arnthea phoned a relative and screamed that she had been shot before abruptly hanging up. That relative just so happened to be her daughter. As you can imagine, the daughter was obviously very panicked. Her mother literally phoned, said she had been shot, and then hung up. Naturally, the daughter called the police. The police rushed to Arnthea's house, where they blocked off all the surrounding streets, treating it as an active shooter situation. Nobody would answer Arnthea's door, so they eventually kicked it down and stormed inside. It was about as dramatic as it gets. Once inside the house, the police were a little upset to see that nobody was home. And seeing as it was April 1st, people were starting to get suspicious. The officers with the Derby Police Department quickly tracked down the prankster at her place of work, where she had made the desperate prank call to her daughter earlier. The cops were so angry that the woman had wasted their time on a silly prank that they took her into custody immediately and locked her up in jail. She is now facing charges of unlawfully requesting emergency service assistance. It's basically the same charge you would get for prank calling 911. 8. Michael Myers on the beach. In one of the most bizarre cases of a prank gone wrong, Michael Myers was arrested for hanging out on the beach in the middle of a storm in Texas. The early Halloween prank was performed just hours before a hurricane made landfall. A man dressed as the horror killer Michael Myers strolled down Galveston Beach, walking right in front of people and scaring the pants off them. After all, the last thing you expect to see while visiting the beach before a literal hurricane is a serial killer from the movies. But perhaps what makes the prank most bizarre of all is that somebody actually called the police. Officers received a call that a man in a mask was wandering down the beach carrying a knife covered in blood. Whoever called the cops had obviously never seen the Halloween movies. The cops treated this guy like he was an actual serial killer. They attacked him on the beach, threw him to the ground, kicked away his knife, and handcuffed him. Even though he tried to explain that he was dressed up like a character from a movie, the cops didn't care. They actually brought him in and cited him for disorderly conduct. All he had been doing was walking down the beach. He just so happened to be wearing his Halloween costume a little early. He was released from the police station pretty quickly, considering the prankster is a lawyer in real life. His name is Mark Metzger, and according to him, his reason for the prank was to share a bit of positivity in the gloom of the oncoming hurricane. Though afterward, he admitted that maybe not everyone found his prank funny. 7. Throwing slushies. A pair of teens found themselves locked up over a YouTube prank gone wrong. This one involving dangerous slushies. According to the official affidavit, the teens were arrested for throwing slushies at complete strangers to record their reactions. Rude. One of the kids even trespassed onto somebody's lawn and then threw a Polar Pop slushie from Circle K at the person standing in the driveway. The slushie was thrown so hard that it burst on their back and showered their house with sticky slush. The pranksters were identified as Kezenia Leonard Antonio McKay and Rafael Mercado. After they got busted, they told the police it was just a stunt for YouTube and that they were hoping to make a few bucks by monetizing the video. Plus, McKay admitted that he had tried the prank days before, getting the inspiration after he threw the drink at a stranger. The kids were arrested on charges of battery, conspiracy to commit a crime, and trespassing. 6. Contaminating the food. A delivery driver for DoorDash was recently arrested after a video was uploaded to social media in which he was seen tampering with food ordered by an officer with the NYPD. His name is Lance Lane, and he's been charged with assault on a police officer, even though he never actually touched any police officer. In the video, Lance can clearly be seen contaminating the cop's meal by sticking his fingers into the Chipotle container. That's definitely weird, but Lance took it a step too far when he left a note with the food that said, "Hope that tastes good," suggesting the food had been tampered with. When the cop got his food, he opened up the container and saw the note. The cop was so mad and so worried about what had happened to the food that he simply threw it in the garbage. And Lance might have gotten away with his ridiculous prank if he hadn't posted a video of himself doing it and then uploaded it to Facebook. The police then made a manhunt out of the situation, tracking Lance down and dragging him out of his house in handcuffs. Do you think Lance went too far in pranking the New York cop? Let us know your opinion in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. 5. Death to the cyclists. 6 bicyclists in Houston have been injured after a failed prank gone horribly wrong. 2 of the bicyclists had to be airlifted to hospital. 2 others also had to go to the hospital in ambulances, and the other 2 walked away with only minor injuries. The prank involved a 16-year-old kid behind the wheel of a pickup truck. The kid, when he spotted the cyclist, thought it would be funny to slam on the gas and shoot exhaust fumes at them as he drove by. He accelerated way too quickly, and by the time he caught up to the cyclist, he wasn't able to brake in time. Instead of shooting diesel smoke in their faces, he hit their faces with his truck. He ran all 6 cyclists over in one fell swoop. Pranks don't get much worse than this. Blowing smoke at people and actually running them over with your truck are incredibly different things. According to Fox News, the young driver has been arrested, but his name has not been released for privacy reasons, as he's still a juvenile. All 6 bicyclists are expected to make full recoveries, though who knows if they'll ever have the courage to get back on their bicycles and drive down the road again. These guys were on their way to the Ironman Texas competition, an event none of them were able to attend because they were horribly mangled by the Texan in the pickup truck. 4. Kids misbehaving. Speaking of juveniles, a couple of very young kids have been arrested after a bizarre bomb threat against an elementary school. It happened on a Monday morning when the youngsters phoned the school and told them that SpongeBob SquarePants was going to throw a bag full of hand grenades through one of their windows. The juveniles were caught in less than an hour because the school knew exactly who they were thanks to their caller ID system. The pranksters didn't even have the foresight to block their number. School employees called the cops, they told them who the pranksters were, and the cops went to the kids' houses and arrested each of them one at a time. In this case, the kids responsible for the prank were so young that they were released into the custody of their parents. It's not clear what kind of charges they'll be facing, but hopefully they've learned their lesson. Clearly, they had been watching too much SpongeBob and too many true crime stories. Not a great combination for kids. 3. Kidnapping gone wrong. Yet another fatality has taken place for the sake of creating a popular TikTok video. This time, the victim was a 20-year-old woman from Mexico. She was accidentally killed as she and some friends tried to film a fake kidnapping video, which they were planning to upload online. Her name was Aureline Martinez, and she died instantly from a bullet penetrating her skull. Here's what the prank was supposed to look like. Martinez and another person were blindfolded and tied up. Then the people who were the fake kidnappers were supposed to make some demands. It was your standard fake kidnapping video. But one of their props happened to be a real gun. Nobody knows why they used a real gun, if they simply couldn't find a fake one, or if they wanted it for authenticity. But whatever the case, when one of the fake kidnappers pressed the gun against Martinez's head, he pulled the trigger. He must not have known that the gun was loaded, because when he pulled the trigger, he blew Martinez's brains all over the ground. Sadly, Martinez was a mother to a 1-year-old baby. That poor child will never know who his mother was, all because she wanted to get popular on the internet. 2 of the men who were involved in the shooting fled the scene after and have still not been found by the police. In fact, the Mexican police have not made any arrests in the case, even though it happened nearly a year ago. They say the investigation is still ongoing. 2. Birthday murder. In the worst birthday prank ever, a man in Florida shot and killed his son-in-law. According to Santa Rosa Sheriff Bob Johnson, it was Richard Dennis who heard a bang at his front door at around 9:30 at night. It was one of his relatives, a local man he was having a dispute with. The two got into an argument and the relative ran away. 2 hours later, there was another bang at the door. This time, someone was really thumping on it, as if they wanted to break the thing down. Dennis assumed it was the same guy from earlier who he was quarreling with, maybe come back to finish him off. So he took his .380 caliber pistol, flung the door open, and walked out onto the porch. There was nobody on the porch. Dennis looked around, now a bit shaken because whoever banged on his door was clearly terrorizing him. And that was when somebody exploded from the bushes. Dennis wheeled around and pulled the trigger of his pistol. We need to back up a few hours at this point, to when Christopher Bergen got off a plane. Christopher flew all the way to America from Norway to surprise Dennis for his birthday. Dennis was Bergen's father-in-law. He thought it would be hilarious if he knocked on the door when he arrived at his house, then jumped out of the bushes growling like a bear. What Bergen didn't know was just how bad his timing would be. When he jumped out of the bushes growling, Dennis was so startled that he shot him in the face and killed him instantly. By the time deputies arrived on the scene, Bergen was long dead. Dennis had towels trying to stop the bleeding, but it was no good. It was all a horrible accident. It really makes you think twice about knocking on people's doors and then jumping out of the bushes. Sometimes surprises just don't work out. 1. Golfing in Alabama. A trio of golfers in Alabama had a horrible time when they were attacked in a prank gone wrong. These guys were playing a tournament at the Kraft Farms Golf Resort when several individuals dressed in full camouflage began terrorizing them from the woods. They were hiding behind the trees, blowing air horns whenever a player was about to hit the golf ball. Naturally, the golfers didn't think it was very funny. They quickly confronted the men in the bushes, which caused a brawl to break out. The pranksters significantly outnumbered the old fellas in their golfing khakis. They were younger, stronger, and quite a bit meaner. Instead of just leaving them alone once the jig was up, the pranksters stormed out of the forest like medieval troops and beat the old golfers with their fists. The 3 golfers were beaten so badly that one of them ended up with several broken teeth and had to be taken to the hospital. Another golfer suffered cuts to his head. As for the people who actually committed the assault, they were never captured. They ran out of the woods, got into their getaway vehicle, and were never seen again. What's the most insane prank you've ever seen? Let us know about it in the comments, and thank you for watching. If you haven't already, be sure to hit subscribe to support the channel and get updates on all the best videos. See you next time. Bye.